Okay, now I can't hear you. I'm not sure if you can hear me.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
I can hear you.
Yes. Success.
Cool, success. I think this is working. Let's just see. Cool. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, indeed. So I'm now going to try and put on a Bluetooth headset. We'll see if this breaks the sound.
Okay.
All right, how's that?
I hear you fine. Sounds just
perfect.
The same.
Excellent.
Cool. It worked out. I saw the they announced. I guess they did the press release. I guess this week for Bradford Space.
Yep. Yeah, it's now official. So it is now Bradford Space Inc.
Yeah. Yeah. Seems like I saw a few trailing emails last week from a few people. I'm just kind of like, at this point, I'm like, what are they? They're just wasting their breath. At this point,
the deal is done, right? So,
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. So, did you and Maggie do anything fun over the holidays, or you just kind of relax, or?
Yeah, we had a good time. Went camping just north of the Golden Gate Bridge. There's a beach you can camp at that you can see San Francisco underneath the bridge from the north side. And because of the government shutdown, they cancelled a bunch of reservations and aren't enforcing it. So we just showed up and spent the night on the beach.
Got it. Hey, Dan, I'm just losing you a little tiny bit. I don't know if it's the mic or the wireless part, but maybe, just maybe try to be, let's see. Let's just see if we get a little better audio.
All right. I did move around the house. Let me just try. This phone usually uses Wi-Fi, so let me switch the Wi-Fi off on that and force it to, there we go, force it to use the cell phone network. Does that help at all?
I think it does. I have the same issue.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Okay, good. Well, if it goes wrong again, I could try without Bluetooth. But,
so were you camping on the beach or near the beach? Like?
Yeah, just slept on the beach.
Oh, cool. What town is that in? It's Marin County.
Yeah, it must be Marin County, just north of the bridge.
Yeah, I like that. There's that park really close, just over there. The Muir Woods. Yeah. I guess monument.
Yeah, it's pretty beautiful.
Yeah.
And, no, this one's like right there, just beneath the lookout that a lot of people go to. And there's a lookout on the east side of the highway, and there's a lookout on the west side of the highway. What you don't realize when you're on the lookout on the west side of the highway is that underneath is a little forest and a beach and redwoods and things. It's really cool.
Nice. We had made a commitment to somehow at some point of the holiday get to see some nature, and it just wasn't really happening. And on New Year's Day, we drove up to the Mount Wilson Observatory, and there's some really nice hikes around there. And it's the highest point, I think, in LA County or city of LA or the LA County, I think. And what was awesome is when we were coming down, we were above the Goodyear blimp, which was circling the Rose Bowl.
Not many people could say they've seen the blimp from above.
Yeah. So I got a few photos of that. It's small, but it's definitely the blimp.
Yep.
Yeah. So, it was really cold. It was very cold up there, though. It was, but nice day. It's amazing how like the scenery, you get above like 6,000 feet, and it's just kind of like the vegetation changes, the trees and plants are different.
Yep.
It starts looking just more alpine.
Yeah. I like the scenery as you get up there.
Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, that's kind of it. I've got a bit of a cold, so I'm kind of like running a little ragged today. But I was going to suggest, did you? I have them here in front of me, but basically, I'm recording, as you know. And and what I typically do is I try to transcribe some notes from that afterwards to edit from. And then and if there's anything they're like, hey, like, I don't want to, I said something, let's redact that or whatever, that's fine. Pull it out. It's no big deal. Like, if you like, I don't really want to say the F-bomb or that Rick, he's such a punk. Actually, I spoke to Rick a couple of weeks ago. Rick was all like one of those needs to be very chatty, and then he disappeared again. We were supposed to continue the conversation, and then he just like disappeared into the abyss. So I don't know when I'll be able to find him again in 2019. What I will share is today, if I should write this down to remind myself, I am sending Elon a letter that has some, I sketched out the questions. I tried to go with the real Elon Musk minimal style to minimize the text as much as possible. But I'm definitely talking about something like around growing the space ecosystem, or, M&A activity, that sort of thing. But I'm kind of alluding to it just to see first if he gets back to me.
Yep.
But I'm going to send that today. And then, yeah. It was kind of funny. I was at a party last night, and there were some people who were suggesting that Elon Musk has had lots of plastic surgery. It was kind of funny for that to come up in a completely random context. I said, really? Has he? I have no idea. They're like, and this guy was gay. He's like, oh, totally. Like, he's had multiple times. It's obvious. They're like, he's the only guy that went from looking 30 to 50 to 30 again. I was like, oh, okay.
Oh, dear.
Yeah.
He can do whatever he wants with his looks. That's very LA.
Yeah, I think he's enjoying, I think he's kind of into the Hollywood scene and that sort of thing. So, if that floats his boat, that's fine, Yep. It's just if you start looking too much like Howard Hughes, at some point, it will catch up with you.
Oh, dear. Indeed.
So yeah, we can kind of keep it kind of freeform, but I would love to get some, hit some of these questions so I can it helps me at least at the top, as I format this. It's just easiest when I edit and format this thing, because, I'm editing for clarity, brevity, I'm trying to make everything shine as much as possible, and, pulling out the and what, and the poor grammar and anything else, that sort of thing.
Yep. Sounds good.
Okay, so I'll make a note here. My recording's about 8 more than 40 seconds in. So let's start. So good morning, Daniel. Happy New Year. And can you start by sharing a bit about a little bit of I'll call a brief background about yourself and sort of kind of maybe the roles that you sort of worn as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, sure. So, I guess going back to university about 20 odd years ago, I decided that I wanted to do something interesting with my life and make a contribution to humanity and all of those starry-eyed things that you do at that age. And decided that getting people off this rock would be something that was both worthwhile and valuable to humanity, address a bunch of existential risks. So I broke that down and was thinking about how to create the first permanent job off Earth, not little 6-month holidays that the astronauts get at the moment, but an actual permanent job. That seemed to be the key. And so I made a list of industries that I thought could generate sufficient revenue to justify that that first permanent job. It was a pretty short list. Consisted of space-based solar power, tourism, and asteroid mining. I quickly realized that space-based solar power would require so much material you needed mining anyway. I couldn't see myself as a tour operator, so I started chipping away at the asteroid mining project, and that took me about 20 years to figure out a business model, to learn a lot about spacecraft, to build about a dozen spacecraft in a bunch of different companies around the world, and started setting up my own company. The first one doing instrumentation for the mining industry, and then high-speed internet for Antarctica, developing some of the key technology.
Hey, Dan, I'm losing you. If you could go back to like your first efforts. You're kind of breaking up a bit.
Oh. Yeah. So my first startup was doing instrumentation for the mining industry, and then I looked at high-speed internet for Antarctica and a few different things, all developing the capabilities that we would need. I ended up talking with Rick Tomlinson at a small conference on the Isle of Man and telling him how I would use nanosatellites to do asteroid mineral prospecting. He read me in on Deep Space Industries, and I joined a few weeks before the founding and became one of the founders of Deep Space Industries. About a year and a half later, I convinced him to do the paperwork to bring me to the U.S. And after I got here, a few months after that, I took over as CEO and ran Deep Space Industries for about 2.5 years. Built that up to some serious revenue, some nice little products, and then handed it over to someone else to operationalize. And I started Orbit Fab, looking at building a fuel supply in Earth orbit, gas stations in space, we like to call it. And so that's what I'm working on now.
Awesome. And so who could your customers, who are sort of your ideal customers for Orbit Fab?
So we're working closely with the satellite servicing operators. There are about a dozen companies now that are looking to set up satellite servicing, either as tugs or robotic servicing, refueling, those kinds of things. And so we're working with those companies. We can really help their business models by being able to refuel their servicing spacecraft, but also give them the option of providing even more fuel for their customers. So that's who we're working with. We're talking with a lot of the satellite operators about how we can improve their business models and those kinds of things.
Excellent. So looking back from, call it approximately, 20 years of searching, making, building, creating these, and bringing these different ideas into sort of into entrepreneurial endeavors, what would you share? What are some insights that you would share looking back that you could share, yourself 20 years ago in terms, and any other aspiring entrepreneur?
And there's no magic pixie dust or silver bullets to any of this, space industry or otherwise. Make sure you have a plan.
Dan, I'm literally losing you.
Where did you hear it from? Am I back yet?
You're back. I think you're better. So just start over from maybe the start of the answer to about sharing with aspiring entrepreneurs.
Yeah, I said there's no magic pixie dust. There's nothing that special about the space industry. You have to have the fundamentals right. So you need to focus on customers. You need to make sure that the business model works and that you're delivering a product that people want to use, customer market fit or product market fit. And then surround yourself by people who are better than you are at everything that you need done. Those are the basics. And then just make sure that you execute and execute well. And then that's the way to build a business. There's nothing that's different between the space industry than anywhere else necessarily. If you're trying to stand up a completely new technology or product, then you have all of the same problems you have standing up a new technology or product in any other market.
Cool. And why, these businesses tend to need a fair amount of capital to get going, and looking at the private sector for capital, you're not going to go to a bank for this. What is sort of the selling proposition you would tell somebody who is a new investor looking at the space sector? Like, why should they be considering a space investment?
So I think that there's a couple of ways to look at that. Any investment needs to hit its metrics in terms of the return on investment and everything else into the profile that investors are looking for. The space industry is particularly interesting right now because there's a lot of activity going on. It's really got the opportunity to be a significant wave of investments and exits. And we're seeing more exits. We're seeing a lot more investment going in, and it's creating that momentum. So I think that's the main reason. There's a lot of investment theses now that are looking at space as a potential significant growth opportunity.
Excellent. And what makes a great investment in terms of have you had the discussions between looking at launchers, between looking at infrastructure, satellite communications? How does one who's maybe just starting to look at the greater space ecosystem sort of gather, between what could be more valuable or lucrative in terms of an investment? How does one weigh some of those concerns and factors?
Yeah, there's a lot of launch companies that have got funded recently, and perhaps that's because SpaceX has proven to be so successful in terms of creating value. I expect to see consolidation. There's perhaps an oversupply of launch vehicle startups now. So that's one area that I think is well served. It'll be interesting to see who the winners are there and who's going to emerge as an effective operator. The other investments we see going on are into large LEO constellations, low Earth orbit constellations. And so, there's Chinese money going into that. There's private U.S. money going into that. There's European money going into that. A lot of that is on the back of build out of 5G and a realization that that's going to take a long time and create very significant markets. And so outside of cities to serve the 5G demand, satellites could be a very effective solution with a very significant revenue potential. And so that's what a lot of those companies are looking at. And in geostationary orbit, we see a lot of challenges to those business models. So traditionally, that's been the bread and butter of the space industry is geostationary communication satellites. And at the moment, that doesn't seem like an area of significant growth. Orders have slowed for geostationary satellites as the capacity, it looks like there's overcapacity. Because of the delays in the signal propagation out to geo and back, it's not as responsive a connection for broadband satellite connectivity in the way that low Earth orbit can be. So those folks are struggling to find new business models and ways to make that work. There's a lot of other opportunities that are coming up from new and novel things, and I think as the price structures might change on the back of all of these startup launch companies, we see some opportunities there. And so, we look at space tourism, we look at the remote sensing plays are getting fairly mature, and there's still some questions about how big those markets are going to be. From an asteroid mining and space all of these are still opportunities. There's just a long road to be had. But the goal really is to look at technology, see where that's driving down costs, and find the opportunities to create value that can hopefully then move into significant industries.
Excellent. And then, Dan, personally, did science fiction play any type of role in your life?
Yeah. So, sorry, I'm just going to interrupt here.
No. Oh.
This is switched now to my car Bluetooth, okay, which I'm going to try and kill.
Okay. Yeah, we can hold it a second. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. It doesn't want me to do that. Let's see. Okay, how's that?
Yeah, I think it worked.
Nope. Wrong one.
Nope. see. Dan, you there? You there? Dan?
Yeah, I'm trying to
Okay.
sort this out.
Oh, okay.
All right, how's that?
I think I can hear you fine.
All right, good. We're back. Great. Okay, so ask your question again.
Asking
Didn't cut out in the
about
middle of
science
the.
fiction, if it was any influence on your life.
Yeah, so my dad's an engineer, my mum's a scientist. I grew up on a farm in Tasmania, and we had a wall of science fiction that my parents had collected, I guess. So as a kid, I read through that, and then I discovered libraries, and so I read through all the science fiction at the local library, and then the internet had just sort of been invented, I guess, and so I discovered how to hack the library terminal, or the catalog terminals at the library, and that gave me access to the internet. So I was able to order books into the library from around the state of Tasmania, as well as use those facilities to learn about the world and play around with computer networks. But anyway, yeah. So I did read a lot of science fiction as a kid. I thought that I think it gave me broad perspectives, some interesting ways to just look at ideas in the way that science fiction takes an idea and then races you to the conclusion. And so yeah, I've been able to think broadly, perhaps because of some of the science fiction that I've read.
Cool. Yeah, science fiction was awesome. I'm a fan. It definitely was an influence in my life, and there's definitely varying qualities and degrees of believability of it. But I always find it, even the stuff that's ridiculous, at least it's like fun and entertaining and always inspirational. Even just at a borderline, like people say they're into Star Wars, and I never really thought of Star Wars as science fiction. I always thought of that as, it's just like a fantasy. In fact, it's actually just George Lucas was recreating a Kurosawa films, and his earliest influence is just in space. He wasn't trying to make it, anything sciencey about it.
Yep.
What about to some of your recent work? Is there anything that you can address in terms of like suggestions to, looking back to when how do I say this that doesn't cause any issues? Locking in what founders when founders sign on to a startup that they're all going to work on a new opportunity. When they eventually exit it, however they exit it, that they're sort of less encumbered or to do what they want. And I know that there's sometimes people have to sign certain essentially NDAs around of these things, and then sometimes, which are fine, not disclosing any confidential or proprietary material, but sometimes founders and employees are also asked to sign legal agreements binding them not to really discuss anything about the startup. In particular, they're generally worried about people saying disparaging remarks about it. Can you comment anything around that, like what you might suggest for a future team, what you'd like to see, how when future founders form in the early formation stages?
Yeah, there's a lot in that question. So let me break it down and
I can unpack it
from a couple of different perspectives. Yeah. So and when you found a startup, you always have some kind of vision. Like there's usually a reason you're doing it that's beyond just immediate economic opportunity. But what you have to realize is that as that becomes a real business, the odds are, while you may be the person to get it off the ground, you may not be the person to grow it into a substantial business. The kind of folks that lead their company all the way through to IPO and then stay on as CEO post IPO are an incredible minority of successful startups, let alone of startups, considering that's the incredible minority that succeed. So you have to really take the attitude that this is going to be a step in a path that is your career and your life, And so don't burn any bridges. Make sure that you're expecting changes to come along, and always be ready for that. So just as you would normally in any other position in your life, have a plan B and a plan C and a plan Z, just in case the situation changes around you. So, all of the startups that I've been involved with, that I'm not involved with anymore, I'm on good relations with almost everybody who was in those, was involved with those companies. And for the most part, I'm glad of the decisions that were made around those after I left. But you have to accept that once you leave, somebody else is in charge. And as a startup CEO, your goal is not to make no mistakes. It's just to avoid making the mistakes that would kill the company, and effectively make the right mistakes. And so someone else comes in, they have a different vision, a different direction, a different prioritization. They're always going to be then making slightly different decisions. So it's easy to be a critic. It's much harder to execute, and there's always someone in the middle for whom the buck stops, or with whom the buck stops, and they've got to make hard decisions. So it's not a lot of use criticizing what that person is doing. You have to really just embrace the fact that they're doing the best job that they can, and you can guide them and give them advice. So that's sort of the transition that I see as you go through an entrepreneurial career and accumulate more experience and hopefully more successes. You then get into a position where you can mentor and advise other people who are coming into it. And so that's one of the reasons I'm doing things like this interview, is that it's good to be able to give back to the community and hope that like-minded people who have similar goals to what I do will pick up on this and realize that they too could try and move the ball down the field, so to speak, on the things that I'm interested in. And I'm always looking for opportunities to help people like that and give them good advice. And the community is full of such people, I think. So there's a lot to be gained.
Beautiful. No, well said. Is there anything else you want to cover in terms of recommendations, challenges, insights, anything that you might want to share?
I think the thing that I see a lot of people doing at the moment is looking for how they can make a better mousetrap, so to speak. And there's always scope for a better mousetrap. But the real change in the industry happens when people find out new things that could be brought to market, new ways of doing things. And that, to me, is the real interesting space. And that's also where you see the big fundamental shifts can happen in industries, when somebody completely rethinks something and comes up with a new product or service. With the changing cost structures in the space industry now, I think there's a lot of scope for that. And I don't think there's much attention being put on that by entrepreneurs, by university class courses or anything like that, to look at how we might just completely reinvent this industry and increase the scope of what's being done. I think there's huge potential for that. In the next 20 or 30 years, every single industry on Earth is going to start operating in some way in space, from medical care to hotels to real estate, insurance, you name it. Everything is going to start having some kind of activity in space. And so that's what's particularly interesting for me, is trying to figure out how to forge my path through that and find like-minded people who are able to realize that we can bring all these industries to space and start thinking about them.
Yeah, I agree. Awesome. Yeah, I think it's just the very beginning of the party, as we see, right now, it's going to be, you see companies have to be space companies at certain points. I mean, like, any company might have some type of activity or presence connected with space. Dan, can you hear me? Let's see.
Yes.
Oh, okay, cool. Awesome. I think I've got some good minutes to work with. So, I next need to kind of transcribe away, and I pray that this recording thing works. It's been a little glitchy over the past few days, so I'm hoping it worked fine. Yeah, good to hang out in Israel as well. Glad we were able to.
Yeah, that was very cool.
Yeah, it was fun. It seemed like, and you know who I ran into on New Year's Eve was Van, just randomly on the street. So literally, I heard, like, Michelle and I were like walking on the street in our neighborhood, and I heard like there were two guys and a woman, and I thought I heard a little discussion about space, like my ears perked up, like space products or something like that. And I was like, Van? And he turns around, it was like Van and Shaheen. Yeah. And they had run into each other, which was funny. And then I ran into that. Hilarious. Yeah. So
if there's that kind of density of space people, maybe I could be down there rather than up here.
Yeah, it's kind of funny, like in my neighborhood. But he didn't say whether or not they're rescheduling or what the Israel event, how that was working out. It doesn't really matter at this point. And I had actually wrote to Ofer a couple times about his event at the end of January. I didn't hear back from him, but it sounded like, he was doing it all himself and didn't have much sponsorship and whatnot. Yeah. So
we're off the record now, right?
Yeah, we're off the record now. Yeah, it's not all done. Yeah.
So what I heard was that IAI was sponsoring this Starburst thing, and they didn't get the names to what they wanted to be the public event. Right? They got local reps rather than executives flying in from the US and what have you. So they canceled the public event, which was and then only held their private event of introducing startups to IAI.
Okay.
So, yeah, it sounds like they weren't 100% happy with what they got for their money out of that, and I don't know if it'll be continued.
Okay.
So maybe there will be no event in Israel.
Okay. Yeah, that happens. I was just and frankly, I think IAI is going to have a lot of attention. They're going to get a lot of attention just with the lunar lander.
Oh, and yeah, that's a real coup.
Yeah. I mean, and it sounds like they're going to try to sell the platform. I mean, that's their intention.
Yeah, I didn't get an impression there was any plan for a follow-on after the first one.
Well, there's no follow-on for it, but apparently if there is interest, they will sell the platform, but they're not, like, planning their own follow-on missions.
Well, definitely Easter is desperate for a lunar landing capability, and they have none. So, yeah, I think there's a clear opportunity there. They want to build a moon village, but they don't have the capability to land on the moon.
Yeah, maybe, that's funny. And that's kind of ironic. They have the whole moon village concept, but with no ability to land on the moon.
Yeah, apparently they went out to industry and tried to get people to, commit to building a lander or something, and they didn't get any responses. So they were underwhelmed by the interest of the community in building a moon lander. I'm not sure what terms they were offering or how that worked, but yeah, and that was about a year ago that I heard that, so I don't know where it's at now.
Yeah, I really haven't tracked it too closely, especially the Moon Village thing. And isn't there now like kind of two segments or two factions of the Moon Village, or like the USA and the European one?
I don't know. The Moon Village Association has always had issues. I was one of the founding directors, and I quit after 6 months because the chairman I couldn't work with. But in terms of the moon, just everyone's approach to the moon, I think there are 3 or 4 different initiatives now. The Europeans are trying to coordinate as hard as they can, because coordination is their specialty. America is just trying to get things done and in its own way and struggle through its own politics. And then China is doing its own thing because the US makes sure that it's excluded. And then I'm not sure what's happening in India or the private sector, of course, is just trying to get money out of whoever's got it.
Yeah.
I think Jeff Bezos' play for Blue Moon is a straight up play to where the money is, which is completely fair. But I think Bezos is a free spacer. He's interested in getting people into space and And the moon is just a place where it can extract $10 billion or so to build most of the infrastructure.
Yeah. Well, Bezos is a patient guy, so he can wait.
Oh, yeah. That's right. Yep.
I mean, people forget that Blue Origin was actually started, I think, around the time of SpaceX, if not before.
It was within a year.
Yeah.
It was within a year, one way or the other. Yep.
It's not like this was a new thing that was going on.
Yeah, he started it. I mean, maybe I'll just become the richest man in the world first. That'll probably help.
Yeah.
Yeah. Within the business plan.
Yeah. I think that's like kind of accidental. That's not necessarily because of him. There's other forces at play.
Yeah.
Well, Dan, thanks so much today. I'm gonna get to work on this. And I'll let you know if I get word back from Elon.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
Yeah.
So I was expecting that you'd ask more questions about DSI and that.
No, I don't think it's.
Look,
I don't want to make it too, problematic for you and then more work for me. So I can actually extract that. I thought from who's the guy, who's the director in Australia. He was going to write me, and then I hadn't really heard from him. I'll write him again. Mark.
He doesn't mind at all if you harass him. He's often out in the middle of the bush at a mine site or something like that. So, yeah. And the best thing to do with him is just get his cell phone number and call it.
Okay.
You have it?
No.
All right. Got a pen?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. I'm ready.
Yep. I'm looking for it. Hang on.
Okay. But I can also get some words from Guillermo, probably Rick. I've asked Megan, who said she wants to talk, but she's like, every time, she's always like keen to do something and then she disappears. So I'm not chasing if they don't want to really book. Maybe I can get a few words from Bill. I was going to wait a few days to contact Bill. So anyways, there's probably I can get enough comments from a few different people to sketch out something.
Yeah. All right. So here's Mark's number.
Okay.
So it's an Australian cell phone. +61 is Australian country code.
161.
No, +61.
Oh, +61. Sorry, +61.
Where plus is whatever thing you need to dial to dial in.
Yeah.
Good. +61. Then 447.
447.
755.
755.
All right, you back?
Yeah, I'm back. So +61 447 755
59. Whoa, hang on. Yeah, 755
755 598.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, maybe I'll send them a text first. Or I'll email and maybe I'll email and then I'll tell them I'm going to text them from my mobile.
Yep, good.
Yeah, and I think I spoke to Guillermo. He had some good comments to say. He was pretty. I think Guillermo seemed pretty. Guillermo was very fair. Guillermo is always way too nice about these things. Like, I mean, he basically got booted out of Space Angels when he should have been, and they gave him very little credit. And he's so always, frankly, even in I had talked to him a couple weeks ago. He was so complimentary to Chad, and I was like, wow. And Chad really just used you, and yet you're still so complimentary to him. So I will say that Guillermo's very gracious.
I lost you there for a second. I'd agree with that.
Guillermo's very gracious and was acting like a gentleman in some ways that when he wasn't as treated as fairly.
Yep.
So I will. I'll have to. So I'll. I got like a ton to do around all this stuff. It's like amazing. Like, when somebody says writing a book, like it's not just writing a book, all the other stuff. It's just like kind of amazing. how many parts there are to this. But yeah, it's coming together. So let me get on with the day. So I really appreciate your time this morning. I know we're starting a new year, and I'll probably follow up with an email in the next 24 hours with like a release, and it's just electronic signature, so easy to do.
Excellent.
And that's it.
All right, cool. Well, good luck for the rest of the interviews. I hope you get on.
Thanks so much, Dan. Have a great morning.
You too, mate.
Talk later. Bye.